Well, after 4 years of Joe Biden, was Zelensky ready for the leadership President Trump exhibited today? Let's bring in Alex Marlow, editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, co-author of the Breitbart Business Digest and host of the Alex Marlow Show podcast, and Joe Concha, Fox News contributor and author of The Greatest Comeback Ever. I'm wondering, by the way, how Zelensky comes back from this. You know, the extraordinary thing, you talk about comebacks, the big comeback from my perspective, Joe, were the markets. They initially went down because, you know, everybody was clutching their pearls and thinking this is a disaster it's Trump again. But look at how the markets ended up. The Dow up 600 points, the NASDAQ up even greater percentage-wise. I think the digested message of what happened today was that Trump won. Is that too simple?
That may, I mean, I don't know if the two are completely connected, but the timing, you're right. You saw that happen right around 2:30, 3 o'clock after the initial reaction. This appears to be the breakup before the makeup. Zelensky is still in the country. He'll be sitting down with Bret Baier on Fox News at 6 o'clock tonight, for example. So, yeah, the fact that President Trump, he's trying to broker a peace that would save Ukraine and end this perpetual stalemate, draining U.S. Hundreds of millions more in taxpayer dollars in the process. And for those who have to be reminded once again, Putin invaded other countries when George W. Bush was president, when Barack Obama was president, when Joe Biden was president, but didn't invade when Donald Trump was president. And by the way, whoever advised Zelensky to come here and publicly challenge Trump in front of the media in his own house should find another job. And by the way, would it kill Zelensky to wear a suit when he goes to the Oval Office?
Well, remember,
that guy looked like he was going to a discotheque and
he was chided by Donald Trump as soon as he arrived, saying, "Can't you get a suit?" or something like that. But Alex, the point is that Zelensky had been meeting all morning with congressional leaders for the third time. We could put up the picture of him meeting with Klobuchar, Senator Klobuchar, Lindsey Graham, and I think Chris Coons was there as well. Clearly, I mean, he was being given advice, but not the right advice. What do you think he was told by these people, Alex?
Yeah, it's sort of surreal to watch it. I think this was the first genuine public meltdown that we've seen from a world leader in a very long time. There's no other really way to analyze it. To the suit point, I think he should just go full Al Sharpton tracksuit now. I think he should go full Adidas with just patent leather or a big chain. Why not? Yeah. He looks ridiculous anyway. Just really lean into it. But clearly he's lost his fastball because no one challenges him. He hasn't met with Putin since 2019.
I think that's it. I think that's it. No one challenges, whether he's going to Europe or here, everybody's just, he can do no wrong. And I think he's got that stuck in his head.
Yeah, and then Vance comes at him with not just, it wasn't an attack, it was legitimate points. Trump sent him Javelin missiles before Russia invaded. Biden didn't do that. And Zelensky went to Pennsylvania to campaign for Democrats, and Trump is supposed to look at him in the face like this never happened. Vance was defending this country. It was absolutely masterful, and Trump having his back and saying, we're not going to be emotional here. That was the key moment for me. And Trump said, we're not being emotional. Yes.
Joe, I understand that he has been a heroic figure at several points in this war, particularly in the beginning, Zelensky has. But once again, I mean, it just showed that you try to take Donald Trump on. Donald Trump defends the United States. He defends the people. At one point, he was saying he was alluding to the fact that it's not him personally. He doesn't want somebody to come into the White House and start insulting the American people who want a payback for all the billions that they have put into this war.
Yeah, and that payback is right there in that raw minerals partnership. You could be talking about hundreds of billions of dollars where we not only get our money back, but this could be a boon for not just Ukraine, but for the U.S. And then Zelensky goes in there and thinks he could strong-arm the president of the United States with cameras rolling. But, you know, to Alex's point, this is what happens after 3 years when Zelensky only heard one word from the Biden administration. Yes. And then two questions. What do you need? Oh, okay. And how much do you need? Those days Donald Trump showed are clearly over now.
You know, Alex, the other thing Donald Trump said is look, we're talking about the potential of World War III here. This is more, you don't think that we are interested in resolving this thing? First of all, he's interested in stopping the death and destruction that's going on, but he's also interested in stopping the potential of a World War III going on here, and the potential is there, Alex.
Yeah, Trump is assumed a paternal stance here, and that's exactly right. He treated Zelensky like a child who is acting out, which is what he deserved. Trump is playing at such a broader level than Zelensky right now. He's trying to end this war and bring peace. He's trying to get those rare earths specifically to counter China, which is dominant on the rare earths market. Trump is playing a huge game, and Zelensky's relitigating the start of the war years ago. Trump has no time for that, and he was not going to hear it.
No, he wasn't. And supposedly he's going to continue. He's going to have that interview with Bret Baier at 6 o'clock. So he still has time before sunset to make some peace here. Gentlemen, great to see you. Have a wonderful weekend.